Hello, I'm Vlad, and I'm recording this exclusive Bitcoin Magazine interview here at the Baltic Honey Badger Conference in Riga. And my guest is Francis Pouliot, who has a very big announcement for Bull Bitcoin, and it's about Liquid, right?
Yes.
You're going to be integrated in Liquid?
Yeah, absolutely. So last night there was a meetup at the Baltic Honey Badger Conference by Blockstream, and Samson Mao was presenting the Liquid software, the Element software that they've been developing. And I mean, I had been following sidechains since the beginning, like since essentially, I think late 2014 when they first came out with the paper. I had been studying the project, looking at elements and stuff like that, but I think it was time for us to make a move and join the Liquid Federation. So we've decided to join Liquid as a member. It's not a federation functionary, it's a member, it's a little bit different. So what this allows us to do, before I talk what it allows us to do, I'll say what we're going to do. So the first step for Bull Bitcoin's integration is going to be to accept LBTC payments. This is fairly easy, actually, from a technical standpoint, because Liquid Core or Elements, which is the software, is like a fork of Bitcoin Core. So if you're able to integrate Bitcoin Core in your business to generate addresses, receive payments, send payments, integrating Liquid is not different. It's very similar, actually. So we'll be allowing the Bull Bitcoin users to pay with the Liquid network, just as they would for Lightning Network and just as they would for Bitcoin. And obviously, if you are buying Bitcoin on Bull Bitcoin, we will also be able to send you the Bitcoin via the Liquid network instead of the Bitcoin main chain, if that's what you want to do. There's a few advantages to do that. This integration is first and foremost aimed at the trading community. Canada does not have a lot of good Bitcoin trading platforms that have a lot of liquidity, so Canadians tend to trade on non-Canadian platforms like Bitfinex or BitMEX, platforms that have leverage and platforms that have very deep liquidity. However, they don't necessarily want to send an international wire transfer to Bitfinex or to BitMEX. I don't even know if BitMEX accepts wire transfers, actually. So a lot of the users, they go to Bull Bitcoin, they buy Bitcoin there, and then they transfer that Bitcoin to some trading platform in another country, which is very easy for them. But what would be even better is if that other trading platform, good example is BitMEX, is accepting Liquid or is integrated with Liquid, then instead of having to send Bitcoin to the user and then the user peg in somewhere else into the Liquid network and then transfer that to BitMEX, we can send him the Liquid, the Bitcoin on Liquid network. He transfers that to BitMEX, leveraging the confidential transactions of Liquid, leveraging the smaller confirmation times of Liquid and the lower fees. And then if he wants to cash out from a Bitcoin exchange, then he withdraws the Bitcoin using Liquid, goes on our platform, and he can sell that Liquid token for fiat directly. So we're removing, for some of the use cases of our users, the need to transfer from Bitcoin to Liquid and do that directly. It's kind of cool because we don't know where Bitcoin is heading, right? We don't know. Is it going to be Lightning Network? Is Liquid the solution for scaling? Is it something else? And I'm pretty curious to find out, and I want to know what the market wants. I can't say there's like an overwhelming demand on our exchange to integrate Liquid, but I think if we offer the option, some people might start to develop innovative use cases around that we haven't thought about. So that's pretty exciting. The other aspect of becoming a Liquid member, because accepting LBTC and sending LBTC is something you can do without being a Liquid member, right? You can run a Liquid Core node and you can accept that on your website. So why become a member? The main reason is that in the Liquid system, you need to be a member to peg out and peg in. Otherwise, you need to go through, if you're not a member, you need to go through a member to request a peg out or a peg in. And if you're an exchange and payment processor like Bull Bitcoin, you're going to be managing different sets of liquidity. We have liquidity on the Bitcoin main chain, we have liquidity on the Bitcoin sidechain, and the Liquid sidechain, and we have liquidity on the Lightning Network. So we may want to rebalance the liquidity between those channels, right? So we may want to close a Lightning channel, open a Lightning channel, and the same with Liquid. We may want to peg out of Liquid for Bitcoin or peg in at our convenience. And it's much better to do that if you're a member than if you're not a member. So it's definitely worth it for us to do that. So we don't have to use a third party, right, in order to use Liquid, which is great. And so that's the big news. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to first start to integrate Element software in Cipher. So Cipher is like the Bitcoin backend of Bull Bitcoin, but it's an open source software that anybody can use. A few people have already started developing applications on that. So anything that's integrated in Cipher becomes really easily usable for us and for anyone via just a normal web API. So we're going to be using the Docker technology on which Cipher is made. We're going to be integrating Liquid or Element, in Docker, and then leveraging that. So the second part of the announcement, I guess, or the news, that something that we're working on is we're working on a Canadian dollar asset that's issued on the Liquid chain. So what does that mean? Is it a stable coin? Is it a fiat coin? I mean, it's not what we have in mind is not exactly a fiat coin, because what we want to do is we want to create a cryptographic asset which is only redeemable for Bitcoin, right? So right now on the Bull Bitcoin platform, we have a system which we call a voucher system. So you fund your account and you buy a voucher, and that voucher has a Canadian dollar balance. And once you have a voucher, you can buy Bitcoin with it at any time you want. However, you cannot transfer this balance to another user on the platform, and you certainly cannot transfer that balance outside of the platform. The only thing you can do with that balance is buy Bitcoin yourself. So if we tokenize this balance using Liquid, this kind of existing system we already have, this allows the user to withdraw their Canadian dollar balance from Bull Bitcoin onto, for example, their green wallet, or and then they can send it peer-to-peer to someone else, and that person can then redeem it for Bitcoin on Bull Bitcoin. So it's not a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin. It's not necessarily a stablecoin. It's the best way to think about it is like a gift card, which is redeemable at Bull Bitcoin, and which will allow you to buy Bitcoin at any time. Which is pretty convenient, because you may want to prepare yourself to be able to buy Bitcoin, like funding your account, but you don't want to pull the trigger now, so to speak. You want to wait a little bit. And it's much better for us if users are holding it on the Liquid network than in our centralized ledger system that we have. There's a few reasons for that. Obviously, there is always a counterparty risk, right? If you're issuing an asset that is backed by something. In this case, this asset is backed by Canadian dollars in our bank account. The main problem is counterparty risk. So if we disappear, that Canadian dollar asset, just like if Tether disappeared, the Tether asset is not worth anything anymore, because nobody is promising to honor it but us, which anybody can accept it theoretically, but they would not be able to get Bitcoin in exchange from us. However, there is a difference, which is that being a counterparty is not the same as being a custodian. So we cannot freeze a balance on your green wallet. You can send it peer-to-peer to anyone else. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we won't be able to track it, right? Using confident, or at least we'll have it will be very much more private. You'll be able to send it peer-to-peer, and we won't be able to censor those peer-to-peer payments. However, obviously, this is only good if you can redeem it for Bitcoin on the Bull Bitcoin platform. One of the reasons why we're doing this is we want to figure out how Bitcoin is going to evolve, and that's why we integrate CoinJoin. That's why we integrate, we've always had BEC32 by default. We're trying to integrate the latest technologies and like the cutting edge stuff. And, there's nothing really that is more cutting edge than Liquid in the Bitcoin space, other than, CoinJoin and Lightning. Liquid is Elements is the other big project. So that's about it.
Yeah, I also have a question regarding Liquid and its impact on the Bitcoin blockchain. Because basically you have a federation of exchanges which trade Bitcoins back and forth. And there's going to be just one settlement for that Bitcoin which is being traded.
Yes.
So you're basically freeing up a lot of block space, which absolutely is great. So by joining... Okay, terrible. By joining, I'm going to talk louder in the microphone.
You want to pause it and go somewhere else?
We can...
9 minutes of talking alone. I don't know how to do that. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So just repeat the question and we'll start over from there.
Yeah.
You good?
So, as a federation of exchanges, Liquid Network has this advantage of enabling trades back and forth between exchanges, which helps the Bitcoin network by freeing up block space. So did you also think about this perspective that you're basically contributing to the reduction of block space occupation in Bitcoin?
Yeah, absolutely. And for normal users, sometimes you don't need to have a next block confirmation, right? You can afford to wait a few hours. You can afford to wait a day. But if you're an exchange, you can't really do that because you have exposition to the Bitcoin price. You may want to hedge. You may want to need to liquidate Bitcoins very fast. So we're always going to pay very high fees because we want our transactions to be included in the next blocks. So we don't want to contribute to raising the fees for other users just because we can and just because our business model depends on that. I remember in November and December 2017, when there was the fee spike, Bills was affected. It was very difficult. The payments would confirm after 2 days. We didn't know if they would be dropped for the mempool or not. Our users were scared because their transaction was not being confirmed. They didn't know if it was going to go through. They had bills to pay. And obviously, we can't pay someone's credit card bill unless there is a confirmation. And, if you are supposed to pay on the 29th of the month and, Bitcoin's taking 3 days, that's quite inconvenient. And also, same thing, if we as an exchange and a payment processor, we transact with other exchanges and payment processors. We send Bitcoin back and forth. We use each other as an industry to rebalance our liquidity, to hedge ourselves. And so a lot of the Bitcoin transactions that are happening are sometimes between exchanges. I really hope that many, many more Bitcoin exchanges are adopting Liquid, because if there's enough people that are accepting LBTC and that are sending LBTC, well, at least between each other, we have, and these transactions that the exchanges are doing have a lot of UTXOs, right? Imagine you're receiving like 100 user deposits during the day and you want to send a transaction using those UTXOs. This is a very large transaction. It's a transaction that can cost you, tens of dollars, hundreds of dollars. I also remember in November 2017, I did one transaction that had a $1,000 US transaction fee, and it had like 250 inputs, UTXOs. So absolutely, our business model is dependent on the success of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin blockchain is completely full, it's okay. But if it's completely full and people cannot use it, that is not okay. So even if the blocks are full, which is good because that means that the miners are making money from transaction fees, we don't want to dramatically reduce. We certainly don't want the Bitcoin experience in the future to be worse than it is today. So hopefully LBTC is going to be one of those solutions, and definitely between the exchanges, you cannot use Lightning Network, right? So Lightning Network is is a layer 2 solution, but it's not a B2B channel, right? You cannot send large amounts over Lightning. Right now, the amount is the maximum amount of a channel is 0.16 Bitcoins.
It depends on your implementation.
It depends on your implementation, but even if it is 1 Bitcoin as the channel amount, you still need to find a route for that one Bitcoin. Imagine 50, imagine 100, imagine 1,000. It's going to be very difficult to use Lightning, at least I see it in the foreseeable future, for large B2B transfers. So, I think Liquid has a really nice niche. I expect the way that it's going to develop is going to be traders and institutions and exchanges and brokers are going to be using Liquid, which frees up the block space for the other users. And the retail users are going to be using something like Lightning Network, which is less liquid. There's a reason why Liquid is called Liquid. It's because it's more liquid than something like Lightning Network. So those mix of two, I think, is going to be quite interesting to see if it shapes out. And, we will figure out if the market wants this or not. And then if the market wants this, we will be vindicated in saying that these kind of solutions are great and we can continue innovating on them. And if the market sees some issues with that, then we can give some feedback to the makers of elements, Blockstream, and they can incorporate the feedback from actual real users in the wild into their software to maybe make some changes. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. We're winning because it's also a great learning experience for us to be what is it like to integrate a second layer 2 solution. This is a very rare knowledge. Like, who knows what integrating layer 2 is going to look like? Well, the people who integrate Lightning and people who integrate Liquid, they do know that. So in the future, I mean, if this is the way it's going to go, we're going to have a big advantage over the people that are not learning this stuff today.
Right. I also know about Bull Bitcoin for a fact that you're possibly the first exchange in the world to encourage coin-join transactions. And you basically said at some points on Twitter, I'm not sure if it was ironic, but you said that you would basically not allow transactions that are not coin-joined.
Right, that is correct. So one of the things that we value a lot is privacy. So Bull Bitcoin is a KYC exchange, right? So obviously there's no complete privacy when using our service, obviously. However, on-chain analysis, Bitcoin chain analysis has nothing to do with KYC. There is no requirement for us to do chain analysis. There is no requirement for us to keep our users de-anonymized. And a lot of every single exchange in the world, actually, I believe, is the victim of chain analysis attacks by either competitors or nation states or hackers or fraudsters. There's many ways these people are de-anonymizing the users of exchanges. Some of it is dust attacks. Some of it is just analysis. But we don't want other people to know that people are using our service. It is the right of the user to decide whether or not his financial transaction data is given to third parties or not. So what we did was we integrated CoinJoin in Bull Bitcoin. Practically what that means is that whenever a user sends Bitcoins to Bull Bitcoin to pay someone else or to pay a bill, that Bitcoin goes directly into a CoinJoin, and it is not spent until the anonymity set is reached. And when you buy Bitcoin from Bull Bitcoin, every Bitcoin that you buy is coming out of a CoinJoin. So you have no visibility over where that Bitcoin comes from. That means that nobody else has that visibility over where that Bitcoin came from. So if someone asks you, hey, you bought Bitcoin on Bull Bitcoin, what is the transaction history of that UTXO? You're going to say, I don't know. It came out of CoinJoin. It's a black box. So that was the first step. The second step is that obviously I'm a Bitcoiner, so I'm a huge privacy enthusiast. I mean, I think by default everyone is in this space. And I look at the privacy regulations in Canada to make sure that everything we were doing was legal. And actually I realized that in Canada specifically, but probably in other jurisdictions, it's not legal for you as a company, as a service provider, to leak accidentally or willfully the personal information of one of your users without their consent. And if I am not managing my users' UTXOs that are depositing or buying from me correctly, I am in fact leaking that the user's information to third parties without their consent, because anybody can look on the blockchain and try to figure that out. So not only is it legal to do KYC, I believe that it is illegal to not only is it legal to do CoinJoin, I believe that it might actually be illegal not to do CoinJoin. At least I think that if you're not doing CoinJoin, you are very possibly breaching Canada's Privacy Act. So when I say that we will one day not accept anything other than CoinJoin, what I mean by that is CoinJoin currently requires users to be able to send to bec32 address, the native SegWit address. This is how it works. So if the user's wallet is not bec32 compatible, they cannot send to us using the CoinJoin. So on our website, we have two options. You can send to bec32, which goes into a CoinJoin, and we can send to legacy SegWit, which doesn't send into a CoinJoin. What we've realized is that a very, very large proportion of users actually use the default setting, which is bec32, which means that I haven't checked the statistics, but it's anywhere between 75% to 90% of the users, something around that proportion, are able to send directly to bec32 addresses, which means they're using compatible wallets. I think that pretty much around a year after we launched CoinJoin the first time, which was something around May. So next May, we are going to remove the non-bec32 address, so the legacy address. We're only going to be accepting bec32 payments after we've given our users a little while to get used to a new wallet. So right now, about 70 to 90% of the users of Bull Bitcoin are opting into the default setting, which is CoinJoin, and eventually we're going to remove all the other options, so they will not have any other choice but to use CoinJoin through our system. And I think the other users, the other exchanges that are not implementing this need to think very severely to the consequences of what they're doing. If they're using single deposit addresses, that's very, very bad. I've seen exchanges that are supposed to be good exchanges that are only have one Bitcoin address for their user deposits. There's nothing worse for unchaining privacy. Nothing. This is the absolute, short of tweeting out which one is your Bitcoin address, reusing your Bitcoin address for deposits multiple times is probably the worst thing to do. And other than that, I don't think they do much management of the UTXOs from a privacy perspective. I mean, certainly as a researcher of these systems, I mean, I can look at an exchange, I can go on an exchange, I can try to do a deposit, I can look at one of their addresses, I can send some dust in there, and I can reverse engineer how much volume they're doing, who they're transacting with other exchanges or their partners. So exchanges really need to not see this as it's not theoretical. This is not like a symbolic thing we're doing. We are protecting our users, we're protecting ourselves, and we're ensuring that we're compliant with privacy regulations.
Okay, but do you ever worry about fungibility and the fact that the customers, once they buy Bitcoins on Bull Bitcoin, they will not be able to spend it in some places that may not accept coins that do not go through Chainalysis and do not get that green pass?
I'm not worried about that. I think it's definitely something that's possible, that can happen. So far, it has not happened. So far, we have never heard of a user having any issues because he was using Bitcoins that came out of a CoinJoin. And even if they do, it's not my problem. It's not, the user should not be using the other service. The user should definitely keep using Bull Bitcoin, and he should contact the other service and say, hey, I mean, a CoinJoin transaction is perfectly normal. Bull Bitcoin is doing, other people are doing it. Why are you blocking a CoinJoin transaction? And there is no good reason for that. Right? I have never seen a single regulation which forces an exchange or a service to do chain analysis. I've never seen that. What I have seen is exchanges that want to please the banks. They want to look like good boys in front of the banks. They go tell the banks, hey, look at that. We have a chain analysis solution. We're compliant. Give us a bank account. I have seen that happening, but none of them are obligated to do that as far as I can tell. So, people are going to have to adapt to us. And this is the mentality that we have at Bull Bitcoin. It's like, we're going to do things our way. And our way is what we believe is the best practice. And it's up to other people to adapt to that or to convince us that it's not the best practice. So far, nobody has been able to convince me that doing CoinJoin was a bad idea. And until then, it's the others who are going to have to adapt to us.
Thank you very much. That was inspiring. So, Francis Pouliot, best of luck to Bull Bitcoin.
Like that.